What a day. Okay, so a couple of things. I'm learning a lot about DTM connectors and DT connectors. I didn't realise there were two different sizes. So I ended up having to go and buy a DTM kit. But it turns out, well, I didn't realise this, but the pins are much smaller on the DTM kit, and they have different crimpers as well. And the reason why I needed to do that is because 8 out of 10 of my crimps were good, and a couple kept pulling out, and I just couldn't really understand why they were pulling out of the, you give them the big tug test to make sure that they're strong, and a couple of them were just not quite right. So that's when I learned that there was a different size kit. So there you go, another couple of $100 invested in a new tool. But now I'm confident that my pin connectors are for the sensors are they're right. They're either right or they're not, and I'm pretty sure they're right. So I spent a bit of time tidying up the bird's nest at the back, and so what I've done is I've run the one sensor ground. Obviously this has to be terminated yet. So I've got one sensor ground which will go to whatever the pin is on there, and then from that sensor ground I've got 8 other ground wires that have been branched off, and that's how I've run a sensor ground to things like the fuel pressure sensor, which will go up there eventually when I get the sensor. What else have we got here? Intake air temperature, coolant, so this is the one that's going to run over here and meet up with my coolant sensor, which is mounted into the camshaft tower. I've got things like that's the NOx sensor here. I haven't terminated this yet, but I do have a little cable for it, so they'll be joined up and whatever. And my TPS, etc. So that's got a nice little Deutsch plug on there now. And I've also got my idle control valve, which is Thusly. So again, nice little label, makes it look almost professional. That's going to run in there somehow. Oops, let me just, it'll be fine, that'll work. I haven't put a doodad on there yet, a boot or whatnot, but I probably will. Actually, on that note, one of the things I find interesting is that when I look at harnesses that I see online or on pictures, which are obviously professionally made, they don't tend to put any sort of heat shrink over the end, or a boot over the end of, say, coil packs and whatnot. They just have the weather seals, kind of like that. I just leave the ends of the connector bare, and you can see the wires poking out, which I thought was kind of weird, but some do, I guess. So yeah, I haven't really stressed too much about it. And in fact, when you look at these DTM connectors, these Deutsch connectors, I mean, this is where you have to push to release the tab, so you can't actually have heat shrink or a boot over this end of the connector at all anyway. I mean, you can on this side, but not on this side. But as you can see, they do have weather seals. And the quality of the genuine Deutsch connector is definitely better than the eBay specials. Yeah, they seal better and whatnot. So yesterday I had a big bird's nest. Now I have a slightly tidier bird's nest, and I'm probably going to take a break now and not continue tonight, because I want to, just sit back and relax and let the old subconscious work away. But what I need to do is basically, I've got my coil harness here, which has a branch going up to the connector. My injector harness, which has a branch going up to the injector. Then I've got all this crap, okay, which is for all the sensors and the powers and whatnot. So these three together need to be grouped together in a big trunk, and then they have to run up to the back of the bulkhead connector. So I think the way to do this, and I'm just thinking out loud here, is forget about all the sensors that I've done today. I think I need to, because these two, the coil and the injector harness, have already been done, and as I said the other day, I kind of wish I'd done it differently now. But the whole idea is that once the engine's built, you should be able to put the harness on the engine. So I can't really have part of the harness branching above and another half below the fuel lines and whatnot, because that would mean that you'd have to disconnect fuel lines to get the harness out. So really, and I've double tested it, the only way that I can run the bulkhead connect, like if I take this off to show you, to give you an idea of size, I'll just take the connector off. So this, pretend this is the engine side. I mean, it's not, that's obviously off the car side of the harness. But imagine all the wires for all those were mounted in the back of this. To get the harness in, you'd have to run this through, which you can. You can run that plug. Hang on, use my other hand. You need to be able to run the plug with the wires on the back of it all the way through here and up into that spot there, which you can do. So that means that I have to run all these things which are all trunked together. Well, they will be trunked together. It has to run here underneath these fuel lines. That's the return line, and that's one of that joins the two fuel rails. I can't. There's no other way around it. So let me just try and get this connector back in. Obviously, I'm doing this one-handed, and nothing's bolted in because, you know. Yeah, but so I think the idea is these two harnesses, the coil harness and the injector harness, which are already heat shrunk and terminated, so I can't make them any longer. I have to find where these fit nicest and then get those cut to length. And then I have to figure out where this one is going to sit alongside that harness, maybe tape it up and then cut it to length, and then put all the pins on and plug away, and then somehow magically get heat shrink on this side and whatnot, and just make it all tidy. I have resorted to a bit of the old Tessa tape here, and I may have mentioned before, and I'm alright with it. I don't care. And of course, when this is done, obviously my engine tin is going to be sitting here, and there'll be a ledge here, so I don't think I'm going to have an issue with the push rod, the throttle rod that's going to be activating the bell crank here. I don't think that's going to be an issue, because these will be tied up. Don't forget there's a solid fuel rail here, metal fuel rail there, so they'll be cable tied up or zip tied up like that. And that bell crank should have, well, these will be in front of the bell crank and the engine tin will be in the front, so they'll be protected regardless. So yeah, so it's looking a little tidier. It's obviously going to have some branches coming out of it. And of course, when you... Oh, there's a plane coming. I'll just pause for a sec. So when you're at the front of the motor, you are not going to see all of that, but you will see that part of the harness there. And of course, you'll see the cam and crank harnesses here and whatnot. Now, as I've been running these cables through, I'm going to have to be careful, because I have put little heat shrink labels on so I know what each one is and you know, where it's meant to go. But of course, when I start cutting these to length, I'm going to lose a lot of these labels. So oh, look at that one. That's just sliding along. That's great. That's good quality. So I'll have to make sure that I don't lose the labels as I go. I mean, if I do, it just means there's going to be a lot more time spent checking connections with the multimeter to make sure I've got the right pins. But I think a bit more time spent making sure that nothing goes astray here will make life a lot easier, and yeah, later on. What else? Oh, that's my map. I've got my map sensor sitting up here at the moment. So here's the other. So while I've got you, and for anyone that's, I don't know if anyone really cares, hopefully someone's watching that knows what's going on. So my map sensor, I've got three. I've got these 3 vacuum ports on the back of the throttle body. Now, I'll get this one blanked off. And while we're here, I'll probably have to get these 2 blanked off as well. These, what does that one run? That's just an air breather for the oil tank. So that sucks in all the vapours, which I don't want. So I'm going to run a what do you call it? An oil catch can or a reservoir. So I'll get a plug made to blank that off. I'll get a plug made to blank that off. I'll just put some hose on there and put a plug in that to blank that one off. But I was planning to use these 2 here. So now I don't know. I mean, they're below the butterfly, so tell me if I'm wrong. I should be able to use one of these to go straight to my map sensor, to give me my manifold pressure, and the other one I'm going to use with the original the lines that go to the fuel pressure damper and also to run to the fuel pressure regulator. So that's the plan there. I mean, there's a little T-piece that comes off there and goes to each of those. So tell me if I'm mistaken that I can't do that, or I should do that, or I shouldn't do that, but that's what I'm planning to do. Okay. Oh, if you're wondering what these are, that was my map wire. These are all the wires that I need to connect up to the wideband sensor. So I've got a red one for power, then all these green ones have all of their little designations on there. So they'll all go to the correct spots on the pin. And this will be for my boost control. So I've got a power wire and then the signal, the trigger wire by the ECU to control the boost solenoid. And I haven't got that terminator down here at this point. It's got long wires, so I haven't figured out where to mount the boost solenoid yet, but I'm figuring it's going to have to be somewhere on the underside of the engine, in the engine bay. So I'll have to drill and tap and mount something somewhere. Yeah. Okay, thanks for watching. Please tell me if I've done it right or wrong, or if I could do something better.